All right, I did it again. Sucker for a cheap trials bike. This is the latest pickup. I just grabbed it tonight. It is a 2000 GasGas TXT280. From what the seller said, it's been sitting for several years and needs the carb clean. Kind of classic story. So we'll definitely dig into it here in a little bit. Start checking it out. It was posted for $1,200. It was missing the front fender, the bracket, the headlight in the ad. And when I got there, the seller pulled out these. So that was kind of nice. This bracket alone for the front fender is like $130. So definitely happy I didn't have to buy that. The fender's not in great shape. Looks like it got burnt on the exhaust and the front's cracked, but at least we have the bracket, which is nice. Headlight's pretty nice. Got these sweet original 280 stickers. I'm sure you can't get those anywhere anymore. Came with a clutch lever to replace the bent one and the fuel tank vent. It also came with an old clapped out tire. So the guy had it posted for $1,200. Ended up getting it for $750, which I thought was pretty good. It just kicking it over. It seems to have a ton of compression. I didn't even bother putting my tester on it. It is missing, or I guess it's broken, that rotor guard. And didn't realize this till I was loading it up in the truck, but it's completely missing the kickstand. I just had it on my stand whenever I was checking it out. The bracket's missing. You can see the holes there. So not sure how easy that's going to be to find. But we'll look at that and maybe even look at some kind of custom option. Looking at the gear oil, not sure how well you can see that, but the gear oil is nice and red. It's usually automatic transmission fluid in these bikes. So the fact that it wasn't milky told me it doesn't have a water pump seal issue or anything like that, so that was nice. And like I said, it feels like it has a ton of compression kicking it over. So I feel pretty confident. Hopefully with the carb clean we'll get this thing running. The kill switch is a little weird. I don't know why it's here. I don't know if that was just they use a different kill switch and had short wires or what. The front brake. These bikes are known for kind of having problematic calipers. These Hebo calipers are known for seizing up. But I think typically when they seize, they seize clamp down onto the rotor. And this doesn't seem to be that. There's just really no pressure on the front brake. It stops the wheel just a little bit. So I'm hoping that's just a quick bleed and that'll be all good. I'll flip the bike around in a second here so you guys can see the other side. There's the bent lever. The clutch feels good. Obviously, I didn't run it. Dust seals are a little cracked, but don't really see any fluid on the forks, so the seals are probably okay. This tire's got to be nearly brand new. It's hard to see, but it's still got a few of the nubs on it. It's a Shinko trial tire, so should be good enough to run. So yeah, overall, pretty happy with it. I think it'll be a good little project. Hopefully something that I can pawn off to one of my buddies and get them started in trials. Let me go ahead and flip the bike around so I can show you guys the other side. All right, here's the other side of the bike. Don't want to drag this out too long, but just kind of wanted to give a quick going over. Chain and sprockets look pretty decent. This little sprocket guard is broken. You can pick those up for like 25 bucks. This all seems to work. Obviously this tire's been sitting for forever. It's all flattened. I don't know, we'll see if it even holds air. For all I know, it could still be the original tire. It's the Michelin X11, so very well might be. They put some kind of little protector here that they riveted on. I think these had an issue with getting water up in the airbox, so guessing someone added that at some point. Here's a little close-up. It's got the Key and PWK carb. I see the choke is on, so who knows, maybe this guy even tried to start it, I don't know. This little sprocket cover's got a break in it. Not a huge deal. So yeah, overall, pretty happy with it. Definitely first step will be probably just put some premix right down the cylinder and see if we can get it to fire off. You know, make sure it's worth kind of diving a little bit deeper into. So we'll pick back up here once we get to that point. Just pulled the plug out, and honestly it looks like this thing was running pretty dang good whenever it was running. Tip of the spark plug is kind of perfectly brown, so it doesn't look super white or anything like it was running lean, or you know, there's no impact damage to the end of the plug like it blew up. So let's go ahead and just for fun, let's check for spark real quick. I don't see anything. Let me turn the light off quick. Oh boy, nothing. Oh, there we go. I guess the spark just came back out of nowhere. Maybe I wasn't turning it over far enough. So I tried to get my compression tester in there, get a quick reading, but this dang tank is so close, I'm going to have to pull it to get my tester in there. So let's go ahead and pull these rear plastics in the tank real quick. Be a good thing to just drain out that old tank fuel anyways. Here we go. So this 5mm had to come off, 5mm Allen head. Now that plastic comes off, and it looks like the airbox and everything, I guess the exhaust bolts to it. So this is a little different than my other GasGas's. Don't know that we really need that off yet. Let's go ahead and pull the tank. Alright, it was a little hard to film, but got a compression reading. Seems right at 120. Seems a little sticky kicking over. Not sure if it's just... I mean, it does have a fair amount of compression. But at least definitely seems like it's not blowing or anything. So let's go ahead and put some premix down the cylinder, see if it fires. Drop our bottle of premix down the hole. All right, let's go. All right, so now that we know it fires up, let's dig into the carb. Took off one Allen head bolt there. Looks like 2 bolts that hold the muffler here. And then with this clamp loose off the carb, I think this thing will come off. check this out. There's a little threaded insert in there. Just popped out of that mounting tab. Bet you that's what's holding that thing in place. Golly, that thing's tight in there. What the heck's rattling around in the airbox? I don't like that. Oh boy, I think that's our muffler mounting nuts. All right, let's pull that carb off. We'll take the slide out from the top here. The slide felt a little sticky, so we'll see if it's dirty. Oh boy. Yeah, she's been eating a little bit of dirt. We'll make sure to re-oil that air filter. Then we'll just take this clamp off here on the intake boot and it should come right out. Look at all that. Just by the color of that, it's making me think the seller probably wasn't lying about needing a carb clean. Let's crack it open. Make sure whenever you're doing any kind of Japanese carb, this is a key in, or any work on a Japanese motorcycle at all, you got to use the GasGas screwdriver. It looks like a Phillips, but it's not. You see these screws, might be hard to pick up on camera. They've got a little dot on them right there. That indicates this is a GasGas, Japanese Industrial Standard. Don't use a Phillips on these because you'd be a lot more prone to stripping them out. Ever since I started using this GasGas, I've hardly ever stripped another screw. Alright, let's see what it looks like. Come on. Let me zoom you guys out a bit. Not terrible, honestly. Let's pull that pilot out and see if it's clogged. Best trick for these is just hold it up to the light, see if you can see light through it. Just gonna, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but I can't see. I'm holding up to my shop lights and I can't see anything through that. So that is most definitely clogged. Pull the main out here. Wow, nasty. So the main's perfectly, perfectly clear. So we definitely just have a problem, hopefully, with our pilot circuit. Honestly, the rest of this carb looks pretty good, except for this super old nasty fuel. So we're going to give this a clean, throw it on the bike, then we'll come back. One thing I want to point out before we do that, there is a jet block gasket. If you remove these two security bits, there's a jet block gasket that surrounds all these tiny circuits. That does get flattened with age. So one thing you'll find if you've got a carb you can't jet, especially a two-stroke carb, a lot of times that jet block is flat and just leaking by. We're going to try to run this one as is, so I don't have to order one. If we have any problems, we'll replace it then. Alright, so off camera, I cleaned up the carb pretty decent. Didn't want to throw it in the ultrasonic, so just gave it a quick spray with carb cleaner. But all the jets are clear. The carb is completely cleared out. Went ahead and recorded the jetting quick. I always do that whenever I take something apart. So I'm at about 5,000 feet elevation. This bike's got a 120 main, 48 pilot, JJH needle on the third clip from the top, and a 3.5 slide. So not sure if that's stock or adjusted for elevation, but for right now, we're just going to roll with it and see if we can at least get the bike running and see how it works. So I'll toss this together real quick, and then we'll throw it on the bike and give it a test start. So I mentioned in an earlier clip the slide felt kind of sticky. I took it apart, obviously completely cleaned it up. There's a little bit of dirt, so hopefully that makes it run a bit smoother. Let's go ahead and throw the carb on the bike. It's going to be real hard to see on the camera, but just a quick check of the reeds. I don't see any chipping at all or anything concerning. So I'm not going to pull those out. I'm going to just assume they're good. Alright, carb and tanker on. Obviously no air filter, but we're not going to run it for very long. Going to put a little 50-to-1 in it. I run 50-to-1 in all my trials bikes. Some people say you can do 80 or 100-to-1, but why risk it in my opinion? So on these GasGas bikes, the black lever back is off, down is on, and forward is reverse. I like to write a little R just on this front side here to remind me so I don't forget. It's easy to forget. All right, let's try and start this thing up. Fuel's on reserve, choke on. Alright, let's try it again. Maybe turn the idle up just a touch. Choke back on maybe. right, she's going. I'm going to try turning the air screw to 1.5 turns out, adjust the head a little bit, see if we can get a little more consistent. Let's go. All right, so huge success getting it running. I turned the air screw from 1.5 turns out to 1 turn out. Seemed to make it run a little better, let it idle a little bit lower. I'm sure it probably needs the, restriction of the air box to run optimally. Since it's super cold out, like 10 degrees, I'm gonna do a couple other things. I'd like to try to get this stop button over here. I don't think it's supposed to be routed through that hole, so I'm gonna look at that. Might go ahead and bleed the brakes, just while we have everything off. The rear reservoir is right down here, so you pretty much have to do it with the bike stripped down. I think I mentioned in the first kind of walk around, the front brake doesn't work, so I'd like to try to get that working, and we'll go from there. All right, so trying to get the stop button moved from here over to here where it should be. For some reason, these people ran this through where the fuel tank vent should go, and then it routes down underneath and back in here. And I had to remove this, looks like the coil there, to even get enough access to get to the connectors. So just note, if you ever take one of these apart, it looks like there's 3 different grounds under there, under the mounting bracket. And it looks like you have to take the radiator cap off for this to wiggle out of there. All right, let me set this camera down and try to get you guys a better angle here. All right, so it's gonna be pretty hard to see, but one of the wires off the kill switch is the ground here. The other one is this white and black, and it goes to another white way up in there. It's going to be pretty hard to see, but hopefully you guys can get a glimpse of it. Going to go ahead and unhook that, see if we can reroute it. All right, we're rerouted. Ran it over here. Zip tied it along to the front brake line. Came underneath here. That's how my other GasGas are, more or less. There's actually 4 grounds that come together under this screw here. There's 3 ring terminals and one that's kind of a U-shape. I put the bolt through the coil bracket here. I put the U-shape on and then pulled the 3 ring terminals over the bolt just with a needle nose. It really sucked, but it's definitely doable. So everything's mounted back in. I did take a chance to check the coolant real quick. It looks like it's, up to level or close to it. Doesn't look nasty or anything like that. So I'll probably leave the coolant for now unless I have any problems. Let's move on to the brakes. All right, so here's something I didn't notice when I picked up the bike. This is the brake bleeder here, and it is completely snapped off and seized inside the caliper. So what I'm probably going to have to do is they make a banjo bolt that bolts the brake line to the caliper that has an integrated bleeder at the top. Probably going to have to install one of those and, either JB weld or try to remove that old bleeder and plug it so that I'm not sucking air. Coming over to the back, it actually looks like this fluid's pretty good. I don't know if, maybe someone already bled the brakes, before I got the bike, but this bleeder is free, which is nice. So I'm going to go ahead and at least bleed these back ones, make sure it has good fluid. So I started bleeding the rear brake, and the new fluid looks exactly like what's in there. So I kind of paused. This fluid's got to be dang near fresh. The stuff coming out of the front brake looks pretty fresh as well. I'm guessing someone was bleeding them and, snapped this off and probably stopped. So there's a local guy who thinks he has the banjo bolt in stock. So I'm going to pause on this and we'll see what else we can do for tonight. All right, let's do a quick linkage and shock bearing check and wheel bearing check. So number one, we'll lift up on the back wheel, check for any play in that linkage. It's very minimal. I'd say it's the same as my other bikes, so I'm not worried there. We'll grab the wheel here, feel for any play in the wheel bearings. 3 and 9 and 12 and 6, and just kind of shake it back and forth. I don't feel any play there. Let's skip around to the front. Obviously, I can't really hold the forks that good, but I don't feel any play there either. So all that's tight, which is great. All right, let's work on this front fender a little bit since we're kind of on hold. This looks like it got super burnt up in the exhaust. I know it's kind of crude, but I'm just going to cut it there with a grinder and try to make it look a little better. We're just going to freehand it, so it's not going to be anything crazy. Good enough for me. I'm kind of a function over form person, so I'll clean up some of these edges with a file and we'll toss her on. It's already got a crack in this front edge anyway, so it's never going to be perfect. I'm going to cut this sharp edge down too, just to try to make sure I don't snag it on anything and break it even worse than it already is. Hate to tear up a good fender because I don't think you can get these anywhere, but it'll be better than it was.